Hello. I have tried to do this recording now a couple of times, and um, I almost gave up making a reading today because I just cannot get my thoughts together on what I want to say, how I want to say it. There's just so much going on. My anxiety level is kind of high, and nothing is coming out in a very linear fashion. So rather than just go on and on, my goal was to get November's collective, like the reading out. I'm before November 1st. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to jump right into a reading. I will say that even though I just began the channel, this year, the point I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of time to spend posting as frequently as I would like to. The plan into 2025 is certainly to post more frequently, more specific readings. I have a whole new project that I'm going to begin soon, toward the end of this year, and it will definitely involve more posting on the channel. Until then, my goal was just to do one reading a month, at least to learn the YouTube system and to get into a rhythm of, I don't know, being recorded, working with video editing, that kind of thing. And certainly collective readings are different. I'm so used to reading one-on-one that I sometimes don't always believe that the collective energy helps, but this time period of me posting on YouTube has helped kind of solve that, because we really do go through rhythms where a lot of us are dealing with the same thing. And collectively speaking, a lot of us go through the same things, just in different areas of our life. Sometimes it may be more profound or pronounced. In other ways, it's much more subtle or more internal, things like that. But I do believe the collective readings help, and I trust that you, as the audience, will take what you need from them and not try to apply them where they don't fit. Mainly, I just try to give information to chew on a little bit, because I do think it can be helpful. So this November reading will be a collective spread that I have in front of me, but then I'm going to take each sign with extra advice, and we'll see what else. If anything else comes up, then I will too. But for now, know that this first spread that I'm talking about, I am intending it for the collective audience, which, right now is kind of small, and that's fine. I always assume that the people that need to hear it will, and we'll kind of go from there so that I don't over talk things right now, because I definitely am in that mode. So I hope that you find this part helpful, but definitely I will timestamp the advice for each sign. The intention is that this will be kind of for November, but I do look to come back in November with another reading for each sign, because I do want to spend a little more time with each zodiac sign. And when I say that, definitely look into your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign, because at any given time, the energies that I'm reading could apply to different aspects of who you are, and what you're going through right now. So the overview for the spread that I pulled right now, and I am using the Horror Tarot because it's October and it is Halloweeny. This deck is really fun. It every card has like an old B movie horror poster vibe to it. And so it can be a little dramatic. Please keep that in mind for when I do hold up certain cards, that it's not necessarily that big, but it's fun. And then I'm using the Raven's Prophecy Tarot as the advice. And that's a really beautiful deck. And again, it's very Halloween oriented. But my personal readings this month, I have been working with like this kind of short reverse pyramid spread. The first row has 3 cards, and the second row 2, and then the last row 1. And it's kind of like I'm trying to get to a culminating energy of a particular situation, like the details and then where it leads to. What's the gist of the situation we're dealing with? Then I have an overview card and a likely outcome card. So it's a fairly simple spread, and it's just hopefully enough. It's kind of packed a punch for October. October's readings were just, I don't know, they were awesome. Like I'm not sure I've ever had a month where the readings were so, I was so in it. And there were a couple of them that were the most profound readings I've ever done. So I love that. I'm really appreciative of the people, my clients that came to me this month, because it was they say the veil gets thin in Scorpio season, and I am feeling it in a big way right now. The synchronicity is incredible. And I will take 1 minute to tell you, when they talk about the veil being thin, it just means that wall between what we see in our daily life and the unseen. And you can have different definitions of what you feel like the unseen is. Is it God? Is it our past loved ones? Is it, the some people talk in terms of like 3D versus 5D, the spirit world versus our reality, any of that, however you see it. But the telltale signs that the wall between it is thin is you have increased awareness of synchronicity, and kind of what seems to be like magical things can happen. Timing is really critical, and it's unusual and exciting, like when things certain things, it's the same old thing they say, when you're thinking about someone and then your phone rings and it's that person. It is hearing a song play in one store, then you get in your car and it's there, and then you log into YouTube and it comes up on your home screen. It's that kind of synchronicity, like you feel like there are messages right there. And my advice for dealing with that is to embrace it, welcome it, and ask for more. Like gratitude for those seemingly magical moments will increase their frequency, especially through Scorpio season, because that's known as, Scorpio is the death card, and it's transformation energy, and it represents like some people say like the underworld kind of, I think the stuff that happens when we think things die, right? It's like on that depth of death and rebirth and that transition. And fall is like that anyway, right? The leaves begin falling off the trees and we're moving into winter. And so it's all right there. But the spookiness of Halloween and our suspension of disbelief is strong. I don't know if you are familiar with that term, but suspension of disbelief is what allows us to enjoy books, enjoy movies. Because could you imagine going to a theater and watching a horror movie and your logical mind taking over, and every single scene you're constantly telling yourself, well, that can't happen because of this, and well, logically that won't happen because of this. And you would not ever enjoy any movie or any real form of entertainment if it had to be real, if you had to actually believe what was happening. The enjoyment comes in when we suspend that disbelief and just say, I'm watching a horror movie and I want to be afraid. I want to be scared. I want, for the 2 hours I'm watching it, I want to believe that is really happening so that I can feel it on a visceral level. The same with books, the same with anything. And it doesn't have to be horror. It just happens to be this time of year. But romance movies, rom-coms are so popular, or they have been. I don't know if they're that popular now, but they have been. And they wouldn't be that popular if we couldn't suspend our disbelief in a fairy tale. And so suspension of disbelief is really an interesting thing. And this time of year, we're already doing it. We already are more superstitious. We already, believe, we want the ghost stories. We want the fun of Halloween. We want to believe that there's a bridge to the other side that we can actually, engage with. And so we're already susceptible to that because of this time frame. So when those synchronicities start happening, when you feel loved ones close by, when you see signs, when you see cardinals out your window, when you hear certain songs, smell certain things, I would say embrace it, right? All of these things are meant to enhance your faith in something larger than what we're living in. And we need it right now. What we're living in is pretty difficult, and it's anxiety inducing. And I think there are things that have happened in the last, 3 or 4 years that we haven't fully recovered from. I don't think we've processed a great deal of grief as a collective. And so it is a good time to take a deep breath and to appreciate the signs and symbols and synchronicities as they come, as our loved ones holding our hand, as somebody acknowledging that it's okay to have faith, that sometimes, we don't have to have the answer to everything. We don't have to watch our back constantly. That there is some kind of higher source or something out there that has our back. There's a reason, and I think that's one of the strongest. That's a strength of having faith of any kind, is that sometimes we don't feel like we have to be in control because we're just in a time period where we're not in control. Well, we never are really, but that's more of a philosophical, debate. But just embrace this time period. Anything that you find that comes into your world that seems to be incredible, that seems to be supernatural, that seems to be extraordinary, allow that suspension of disbelief and allow the trust, and for that those moments to bolster the faith, because I think what we're going to need it. We are going through some radical shifts, and we're all going to be okay. But it just doesn't feel like that in the day to day. And so I hope that in some realm, just aligning with other people that make you feel good. It's the only reason I do these videos, is that I'm trying to connect with others that think like I do, that we can learn from each other and lean into each other. So that's what this reading is about, and that's what it's for. There is a little element of that in the read, but it is more of a specific circumstance. So I'm sorry about that rant. It seems like what I wanted to say was going to come out one way or another. So I'm sorry about that. It really wasn't scripted that way. I didn't know what I was going to say. But yeah, I'm just going to jump right into the reading. The overview card that I pulled for, again, the collective spread, and please apply it where you want to, is the Justice Reverse card. This is a pretty logical, straightforward card. Can have a couple of different meanings in tarot. It is the Libra card of the deck. Libra has to do with partnerships of any kind. The way that we work with others, the way that we live with others, the relationships we form with other people, and how they affect us. And when this card is in reverse, it has to do with an injustice. It's very literal in that sense. It's a major arcana, so it's something that you will notice in your life that isn't working, that wasn't working. It could be a literal legal situation that didn't go in your favor or isn't going in your favor, but it doesn't have to be about the justice system in general. It can just be within relationships or things that haven't worked or you don't think are working. Something's out of balance. If you think of this card as the justice scales, when it's upside down, it just means that the scales are not in balance in some way. Now, the card that clarified that is the Hierophant card, which this is not my favorite card in the tarot deck. This particular deck, it's okay because it actually really represents how I think of the Hierophant energy usually, but the Hierophant energy is institutional energy, and institution is something that we as a collective bunch of humans decide on, that these are our values. This is a system that we have built. It's very systematic in nature, that we've agreed on to some degree. And then we try to live by it. So the Hierophant can represent things like corporations. They can represent law, like law and order. It can even represent like marriage. These are institutions that we have constructed. Certain things like hospitals and education fall under the Hierophant energy. It represents traditions, things that we have put together to say this is what we value and this is how we're going to do it. And this is kind of like the right way. Now, doesn't mean that things that fall outside of the Hierophant are inherently bad or anything. It's just that this is the agreed upon value system that we have put in place in some way. And depending on how I read the cards and what's going on, it can represent something really specific. Again, like college or higher education, that kind of thing. With it paired with the justice system, for some people, it could be an actual legal situation that you might be facing. But also, it could just be, again, this is a clarifier to the justice card. So it's not standing on its own. It's clarifying. It's like an adjective to help us describe what the justice in reverse is about. So the reason I'm talking so much about these two cards is because they are both major arcana. They're both fairly impactful in our life. There's something that we would notice Okay. Rather than the minor arcana cards, which are more like kind of passing moods, they're not necessarily worth all this talk. But this is something that in your life, in a general sense, even, that hasn't been working for you by doing something a traditional way. Now, if, like I said before, you could be someone who's dealing with an actual legal issue, and that's its own thing. But something that we may have been trying to follow the rules, work within a tradition, something that has been what we have valued and put a structure to, isn't working. And I think this speaks to a lot of things. I mean, we have an election coming up, and this could be speaking of that. I don't see that in the cards, so I'm not even going to spend a lot of time talking about any kind of election stuff. I just think this is that kind of energy where something that we've established, we're dealing with an injustice in a way that has to do with doing something the traditional way, and it hasn't worked. Now, that can apply to relationships, work, marriage. It can apply to a lot of stuff. But I'm just going to say, as a collective, that's what we're kind of dealing with. The first line that I see here is the star is another major arcana. It's on the row of 3. And I love star energy. It's Aquarius energy. So this could be something like plans for Aquarius season, which happens in late January. Or it could just be healing from something. It's the big wish card of the deck and the big healing card of the deck, where we restore ourselves. It's very restorative energy, and it's very hopeful energy. It's the thing that it's like the North Star kind of energy is a way to say it. What's interesting is I rarely see it as red. Now, this deck has chosen red, but generally the star card is it's more of, well, the star's typically gold or yellow, but it's against a backdrop of a night sky. So kind of like when you would look up to see the North Star. So take that how you will. I don't even know what to make of that. I truly don't. I'm noticing the Christmas colors here, but really I'm thinking we have either had our sights set on something, and this is in the upright, so I mean it's still present. Maybe you had a really great idea, right? Something you really want to do, and you're in a situation where something's not working, and so you are either healing from it or you have an idea about how to overcome it, like what something could be. This is also a card of like the ideal. All right, that's where I see it anyway. I'm not sure other readers do, but I see this as that thing that guides us toward the ideal of the thing that we want. So that's showing up along with the Six of Swords and the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. And honestly, these two just talk about moving out of conflict, even though we don't know what we're moving toward yet. So I don't know, with this thing not working, there was an injustice here. We're healing from it. We're trying to move on into calmer territory, but we don't quite know. We don't have the new thing yet. So if you were laid off from your job, you may be thinking over what it is you want to do with your life. This may open up star energy in terms of, well, what do you see for yourself? It also could be healing. It's traumatic to be laid off or to lose work. And so you could be healing, trying to move on into a better headspace, even though you really don't have another option yet presented. This could have like even put you into a place where you don't even know what to think. The next row is the High Priestess in reverse and the Seven of Cups. Normally the High Priestess, when it's in the upright, has a lot, it talks about our own intuition, right? It's the hidden knowledge that we all own, that we tap into. And when it's in reverse, it can be secrecy. It can be not seeing something coming. It can also represent not really knowing what to think, not having an idea about what we're going to do next. Have you ever had that moment where you can't even hear yourself? Like people say, listen to yourself, listen to your heart. What do you really want? And you don't know. Like, you don't know. You're a blank slate. You can't even get there. This is that kind of energy. And this is on the second row. So we're moving on, even though we don't know where we're moving to yet. This is like really not having a clue, not hearing ourselves. But the Seven of Cups is all about the daydreaming energy. It is imagining what could be. The Seven of Cups is usually 7 cups that are upright, and they all hold something different. Some of them might hold wealth, some might have happiness, some might have love, some might have a snake, some might have, vice. It could be anything. In the emotional realm, when you start thinking, well, I could do this and I could do this and I could move here and we could go to Hawaii and we could, it's just opening your mind to the possibility. It doesn't mean that all of those things are good for us. And cups represent our emotions, though. They're not necessarily practical, tangible things we're doing. It's just the daydreaming card. So the second line here is saying, if you haven't encountered this energy yet, you may want to take this line as kind of advice of a good thing to go through. If you cannot hear yourself talk right now, or you cannot hear what you really think or what you really know about a situation or where you want to go next, you might want to spend some time daydreaming about it. And when I say daydreaming, I mean talk to your friends about it. Just flip through magazines, look for ideas. If you're looking for a job, log on to one of the big, get onto LinkedIn, or I was getting ready to say monster.com, but I don't even think that exists anymore. I don't know. I don't know the job market anymore. But begin asking around. It's expansion. Expand the possibilities. And do that however you can. Some people journal about it. Some people do free writing. Some people go for a walk. It's anything that will allow you to expand what you could do. Now, again, we're in brainstorming phase right now, so no idea is a bad one at this stage, right? It's just getting those ideas going. And then the last card in the mix is the Fool. And I really love this. The Fool is the very beginning of the tarot. It is the kind of the God card of tarot, pure potential. It's card 0. And 0 represents, no ending, no beginning, pure potential. So it's a clean slate. It's a new start. It's taking a chance. And it's largely a card of faith from the standpoint that we don't have anything except belief to go on. Belief in ourselves, belief in that we're going to be okay no matter what. So I like that all of this energy, trying to move on, trying to come up with what our next step is, does culminate into a new beginning that you kind of have to believe in. Well, you don't have to. It looks like you will. In this deck, because it's the horror, she's walking straight off the cliff like sleepwalking. But the imagery is not unlike the normal Rider-Waite typical Fool card. That has, in modern day, it has less to do with like being foolish. There is a component of that. I usually read that when the Fool is reversed. But the older decks, old time tarot, like centuries ago, sometimes it leaned more into foolish behavior, but really the more modern interpretation has to do with faith in self. I can handle what comes when I start something new. I'll be able to handle myself, right? I can take it. Faith that it's the right move. Okay. So it's taking the new job, even though you didn't even think you would, it's trying something new, having faith, taking a risk. And I kind of like this. You're ready to start something new. And it may even be just a feeling. The Fool can speak to time. That would be Aries season. It's an Aries kind of energy, and that's Mars. That's like taking action, right? So the person actually has to take the step off that cliff for something new to happen. And it's kind of good. Like, I kind of like this. Like, we're healing from something that wasn't working, and we're going to think about, at least begin something new after a time of like brainstorming and trying to hear ourselves think and kickstart our intuition again. That's how you kickstart the intuition, is to open your mind to new things. And we're going to take this leap. And I kind of like this. Now, that energy, the likely outcome here is they're both minor arcana. So I kind of like this. This shows me that the Fool energy, either, even though it is action to take this step, it doesn't mean that it's all going to culminate right now or there's anything that's happening, because what the likely outcome here are minor arcanas, meaning this could be a thought process. This could be planning, like for the, Aries season next year, which would be late March. So it could be more of some kind of like future projection, or even just announcing that, hey, I think I'm going to do something new. This could be just applying for a new job, right? Taking that step. Because what comes next, the likely outcome, is the Five of Swords in reverse and the Four of Cups in reverse. This is awesome. Because even though these are minor arcana, meaning we pass through these kind of energies without much impact, I guess. They're things we move through. I like them both in reverse because upright, both of these cards kind of represent a kind of conflict and stagnation. When the Five of Swords is in reverse, it's coming out of conflict. And it could be largely with other people or yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a fight, but what I see on the table here is a lot of stress. And when we get stressed, we get very bitey and we get short-tempered. You can bicker with people, fight with people. You can be conflicted in your mind about how to solve problems. There could be a lot of that war within self and with other people. And when that's in reverse, that means it's coming out of a conflict time period. And on the table here already is the 6. So we got the 5 reversed, which means we're kind of on the other side of that with this outcome, moving into calmer territory. We're going from the 5 of Swords to the 6 of Swords. And that doesn't mean everything's solved yet. It means mentally we're getting to a calmer place. And I like that. So even just the decision to do something new, the decision to have faith in something, even just knowing that, acknowledging that to yourself, can help move you out of a conflict. The Four of Cups in reverse, another card that I prefer to see in the reverse, because when it's in the upright, it represents a certain kind of emotional stagnancy that can come through as apathy or not really caring how you feel at the moment. Like your awareness isn't necessarily on feeling good. And it can be not being satisfied with things around you. Just kind of an emotional flatness. But when it's in reverse, I always read this as caring about your own emotional well-being. Meaning, why am I going to stay in something that is not right? I am going to try something new because I actually want to feel good. That's kind of the gist of this whole collective spread, is there's something probably of a traditional nature that hasn't been working. I don't even know what to do about it, but I've been through some stuff and I know I have big wishes for myself. I don't know how I'm going to get there yet. There's no opportunity here in front of me. So I'm going to, daydream, think about it, try to get in touch, try to get this intuition card flipped upright so I can hear myself. And I'm going to dream big and actually take a step. Doesn't mean you have to do the whole thing. It's just going to be, you're going to start something new. Me, starting this YouTube channel this year. That's it. One step, right? Because I want to come out of conflict about what I want to do with my future. I want to do something that I'm emotionally invested in, and I want to be happy doing it. So that's kind of the gist of maybe what some people are going to be going through here in now. I don't know where you are in this line of getting to the point where something that doesn't feel right isn't enough. It's not okay anymore. And I'm going to do something about it. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to spend some time with myself thinking what would make me feel better. What is going to be work for me? How do I get more in touch with myself? What do I believe in? And I'm going to take a small step in that direction. And that's going to move me out of a kind of a stagnant, conflicting place. So I hope that made sense. I know I talked a lot right there, but I think it's really interesting energy. I like it. If I had to guess, a lot of people have already been in this process for a while. When I say a while, I mean the second half of this year probably has been fairly impactful. And it probably will continue through, you know, March of next year. So watch for those shifts with this kind of thinking, where you want something different, you don't know what it is, you spend some time with yourself, and then, you know, you decide to make a change. And you don't even have to do the whole thing. I just see the first step here. And that's always having faith in yourself that you can do it. But at least it moves us in November into, you know, this idea that it matters how we feel. And I like it. I did pull some advice cards from the Raven's Prophecy for this, for everybody. And I got the Ace of Coins, which I love because in the spread, the Ace of Coins showed up in reverse, which means it's not present yet in the spread. But the Ace of Coins as advice says plant your seeds, right? There are opportunities. The sun is on this card, and the sun always represents our vitality, what makes us happy. It represents joy. You know, what's going to make us feel like our best selves. And so the ace, this being advice, means there are opportunities around you. Sure, they're just opportunities at the point of the ace. And not every opportunity is the one, but you do have opportunities. And so it is about seeing what could be, you know, you need a new car, you go look at the lot. There are a couple of cars on there that would work for you. Those are opportunities. This isn't talking about necessarily going and buying that right this second. It's knowing what you want. So looking around and finding those because they're there. That's that piece of advice. The next piece of advice is the Knight of Coins. This goes right along with that. I'm sorry, the glare. Ugh. The Knight of Coins is a card about planning for the future. Knights are all action oriented. This particular knight happens to be the slowest one in most normal decks. His horse is the only one of the four suits that isn't moving because he's planning. He's the Knight of Pentacles, security, longevity. You know, he's looking at the resources. And the Knight of Coins doesn't move until he knows that there is a way forward, until it's going to be successful. So he does indicate usually the most successful knight consistently because of his planning. I love this one because we just talked about there being new opportunities and plant the seeds for those. This looks like a shovel, but this shovel head looks like it's in the shape of a heart. And all we've been talking about here is caring about what you're doing, caring about your life, feeling better. What is it you want to do? And so this is plan and lead with your heart and plant the seeds that you would really like to see happen. What is it that you really want for yourself? And that does require checking in with your emotions, like knowing what it is. And we don't always know what that is. So this whole spread has been about daydreaming to get there and imagining. And, you know, this could be a really lucky time for people, but this is planning for a new opportunity. And they're both coins. So this is like investing your resources. This is good, solid planning, knowing the logistics, knowing what it's going to take. You know, get very grounded. If what you want is going to require an overhaul, clean out your office, purge the things that aren't necessary, free up your space, free up your resources and your time and your money to plan for something better. So I like those. Both of those are very practical in nature, and that energy together works. It's really beautiful for this time of year. It's super hopeful, but it's practical. It's like getting things arranged. And even if you don't know what you're getting them arranged for, we generally know what's not going to work for us anymore. So this is a great time to purge the stuff that you know isn't going to work with that plan. It frees up space. And nature doesn't like a vacuum. So when you free up space, you allow for the new to come in. Anyway, that's a whole nother talk. The last piece of advice threw me a little bit. It's the Seven of Swords in reverse. The Seven of Swords is an interesting card in tarot because upright, it can mean like in the most basic way, like the lying, cheater, thief kind of energy. It's getting away with something, not telling the whole truth. It's not necessarily a great energy. In this particular deck, you can see where it would represent like someone lying to get something done, right? You fingers crossed. Sure, sure, sure. Wednesday reverse, this card is about transparency. It is about something coming to light. I don't know if this has to do with, you need to plan, well, literally plan for something to come to light. But, I don't know. I don't know what this is going to mean individually to you. It is about basically seeing through lies, seeing through falsehoods. And I really want to say maybe don't make false promises to yourself. These are all about reality and what we really have and planning for what we want. This has to do with, I want to say, authenticity. Like, don't make half-hearted promises to yourself. Don't go after things that you aren't really going to make you happy. Like, see things for what they are and plan even if it's slower, plan for things that are real to you. I think there's more here. I'm not able to pull it right now, and I don't want to talk forever, but I will hold it up. The Seven of Swords in reverse. I just think it's interesting that the tattoos on this hand, this deck has a lot of hand imagery. And in the very second card, the Magician card, the hand in it has the tattoos of all four elements, representing the all four elements, and the infinity symbol, meaning that, it's just ongoing, right? But I always see the hands now as magician energy. And magician is about having what it takes to do something and then doing it, right? And having all the resources you need, all the emotional, all the time, everything you need to be able to do something. And so you do it. So this hand being in the Seven of Swords in reverse, this is why I was saying don't lie to self, right? This is a time to get very realistic about what will it take to be able to do what you want to do. And in places where maybe you have lied to yourself or been okay with certain things, this is time to be very honest with yourself. Kind of like budgeting. When you budget and people leave off the things that they buy anyway. Like if you stop at Starbucks every day, well, when you go to make a budget, you may not build that in. Because in your mind, you can say, well, that's not really a budget item and I can always find an extra $5 or whatever. But if you really were being real and budgeting effectively for a new cycle, right, for success, you will want to build in everything. And it's okay. We feel guilty sometimes about those things that we consider like frivolous or vice or something. But it's much better for rigorous honesty if we're going to be successful. Like, see yourself for who you are and what you are and the reality of a situation. That's one way that I'm reading this. Anyway, I think I'm missing something on that. I'm going to talk it to death. So I will be right back with a little short extra bit of advice for each sign and maybe to narrow some of this energy into what specifically might help you moving forward in November. Okay, Aries. The cards that I pulled for you for advice for November on how to navigate what could be the energy we talked about, it doesn't have to be, it can apply anywhere, is actually really lovely. Like, I really like this. Trying to find where there is like no glare. The Knight of Cups and the Four of Wands here. And again, I'm sorry for the glare. Together, I mean, these are both really nice energies, and I think this is incredibly doable advice, and I think it's actually solid. Like, the Knight of Cups is typically a card, to me, it's another action-oriented card. It has to do with, like, taking action in a certain way, right? Each knight has its own flavor of how you approach something. Now, the Knight here is approaching the Four of Wands. That's what it's in combination with. And the Four of Wands, in a literal way, can represent your home, stable foundations of any kind. The four walls of security is how some people kind of phrase that. Here, there are four candles. You know, it has to do with, again, solid relationships, solid home life, that kind of thing. Anything that represents that kind of stability to you, and the things that you do, habits and routines and things that create and provide something stable. So how you approach this could be, I mean, in a couple of different ways. This is talking about the flavor of the Knight of Cups. How you approach would be virtuously, creatively. That night is all about creativity and honor and love and friendship and honesty and doing things from a heart space. Like, so it's open and vulnerable and optimistic to some degree and kind. I always think of the Knight of Cups as having an innate like kindness to it, that there's an innocence there because you're sharing your own emotional space with someone, but you're also listening to your own self. So it's an honesty with self too. You're approaching something with an open heart. So in terms of like your home life, if this could be something as simple as if you were going to redo a room in your home, you know, go for things that are going to make you feel emotionally good. You know, if this is repairing, oh, I don't see repair here, but it could be. If this is like anything having to do with something that you consider like foundational in your life, it's approaching with an open heart and doing the right thing. Right? It's fairness and keeping all these things in mind. Now, on another very fun side, it is talking about like putting, you know, if you're going to explore a new like creative area or do something, do it with an innocence and a lightness. You see that Knight of Cups has a feather in it, and all the ribbons make me think of bicycles when we were kids, you know, and they had the ribbons coming out of the handlebars. There's something about a lightness and fun and innocence that comes through. So approach things regarding projects and your house and your relationships with a lightness that is fun, that allows space for people, that is coming from a heart-centered space. And I like that. On another way I read this is possibly, I don't know why mending is coming up, but if you have to approach a situation that, I don't know, has I don't really know how I'm seeing this in mending, but it is approaching something in order to restore stability. So I don't see the Four of Wands reversed. So I'm not like this is on the outside that this may be for somebody, but it is definitely approaching a situation that you hope could be more stable with an open heart, with the creativity, with the mentality of friendship and vulnerability. So I like it. I think it's really appropriate. And it's also a way I really feel like to establish or maintain some kind of stability is to have a good disposition. All those candles could speak to you being very active and having a lot of things to think about. And it wouldn't surprise me, we're moving into the holiday season, and there is usually a lot that we have going, and all those candles represent something that needs to stay lit. I think it will be easier to navigate this if you do it with creativity, with a sense of kindness and openness and lightheartedness and a certain kind of innocence, and to keep things light. I just keep seeing that feather, and there's something very light, and keep things fun, keep things moving. That I think things will be fine from in that way. I also want to point out that the Four of Wands is a four, but also there are four ribbons on the Knight of Wands. So I want to say that, you know, the number four may be really important. 44, you know, if you're into angel numbers, if you're into any kind of synchronicity watching, like I was talking about with the looking for ways, you know, fours could be really important. I really like that. I think four, I would say for the next 4 weeks also. Now, it kind of can vary. Different symbols mean different time frames, but I'm really feeling 4 weeks, especially. Could be 8 because we have 2 4s, which would make sense because that goes through the end of the year. So you can see how this gets kind of like a do loop, kind of, if you keep going with it. But I would just say approach things with a lighthearted, friendly, fun, not frivolous, really, because the Knight of Cups isn't frivolous to me. It's creative and thoughtful. And I would say the things that you approach that way. If you're trying to establish security, if you're trying to maintain security of any way and keep all those flames lit and keep things healthy and happy and stable, definitely approach it with that kind of mentality. Also, if you're trying something new, sometimes the Knight of Cups, because all the knights are moving, they're moving into new territory. You may be moving into more creative things that kind of like set your soul on fire. That's what the Wands suit represents, or our ambitions, the things that we're passionate about. I would say with the Knight of Cups, he never rushes, right? His heart and creativity flows. And there is a sense of slow and steady with the Knight of Cups, even though he's not at a standstill like the Knight of Coins. He's not having to plan everything. He really flows. So if one thing requires more of your attention, I wouldn't panic. I would just let something run its course where it needs to go. And in that way, the Knight of Cups much more listens to that thing inside, that creative inspiration, and he tends to kind of flow. And you may have multiple projects going on at the same time, and I think all that will be fine. But I think the main point of this advice is the attitude with which you approach things and keep things. I would say levity and creativity and kindness and vulnerability and a childlike outlook can really, really be beneficial, and making every moment kind of fun. If you're going to be busy, if you're going to be doing all these things, that is a way to maintain your stability, is to have that kind of mindset with it. So I hope that helps. Okay, Taurus, the cards I pulled for you are kind of interesting. The first one that I pulled is the Hierophant card. This came out in the collective reading. It came out as with the Injustice card, or the Justice card reversed. But here you have this as advice, all right? Now, something about the Hierophant card in this deck that I absolutely love is it kind of, to me, in tarot, the Hermit card, which comes a little bit farther down the line, holds a lantern. That the Hermit in the card is holding on to a lantern. And the meaning of that is the star from the Star card it's the light inside the lantern. And the Hermit is a card of going and isolating yourself to some degree to figure out what's important to you. And then the Hermit holds the light, of the lantern is what has his attention. And he's developing that, actually, trying to, get rid of all the distractions and focus on what's important to him and his priorities. Well, this particular deck, the Hierophant card, is not the Hermit card, but it is the lantern. And I do think, in my mind, I'm reading it as from the Hermit card. So whatever you hold important is that thing that I was talking about in the collective reading about our structures and our values and our systems that we create, our traditions and our institutions that we hold up as valuable. So Taurus, for you for November, in terms of advice, it's remember your own lantern. Like, remember what is important to you and what you hold valuable and what you hold sacred and your systems. And if you notice, all those little look like they could be like fireflies or something around the outside, that's really coming across to me as distraction right now. So I would say the Hierophant energy, believe it or not, is kind of Taurus energy. It's the very adherence to a set of values. And Taurus energy can be very, very stubborn when they think something is right. And this is meaning for the month of November, I would say watch out for distractions that tempt you away from what you know to be true. and what you know to be right. Not necessarily, I'm not feeling on an institutional front with this, like anything external. It's funny because it did come up that way when I was reading for the collective, but this time it's more about you. Like I'm seeing more hermit energy in terms of your personal lantern. What is it that you hold sacred? And I wouldn't be distracted by the fireflies or the things around it. You know what you have, and I would be stubborn about that. The other two cards that came up are the Eight of Cups in reverse and the Five of Coins in reverse. These are, from a reader standpoint, I can't tell you how interesting this is that they came up because they look very similar. One has petals of a flower, one has feathers, but they're both feathers and petals that have fallen from their normal place, indicate like decay of some kind, something past. Like birds need their feathers, right? And so when they molt or whatever, I don't know if that's what birds do, but the feathers then are not needed anymore. Same when a flower runs through its life cycle, the petals aren't needed anymore. So these are things from the past, both of them. And when they're in reverse, the Eight of Cups talks about walking back into an emotional situation that you already thought you left. So kind of being drugged back emotionally. Doesn't necessarily mean literally. It could be. You could run into people, from your past that bring up, but it's more of an emotional sense. You're still there could be a temptation to actually kind of go back to something of an emotional thing from your past that you already thought was closed out. And I think that is a temptation. Like, I'm reading it that way this time. The Five of Coins reverse talks about coming out of a scarcity mindset. In an easier way to say that, when that card is in the upright, it's about feeling broke, feeling left out, not having enough money, not having enough resources, not having the help you need. And when it's reversed, it's coming out of that. So it's weird that these two together kind of talk about, by going back to something from the past, you can come out of a current problem. But I'm seeing that as a distraction from what you really think to be true, what you really hold up to be important to you, values. And I would say be really stubborn against the idea that your past is somehow going to make you feel any better. And when I say the past, I mean, we're talking about emotions here. So I'm not being one of those, I don't think this is like soap opera type stuff. I mean, it could be, maybe it's playing out that way. I'm talking about more of like the way that you used to feel about things, or if you had some things that you overcame, abandonment issues, feeling like you were never going to be enough, feeling like you were never going to be independent, things that make you feel bad, things that, a kind of social insecurity, anything like that. That's really not going to help right now. What's going to help is you holding on to your lantern, right? Remember, what you are, what's important to you, who you are, what you stand for. And this in the face of anything else that could be kind of pulling at your attention. And ways that could come up is we are moving into a time of the holiday season. And sometimes just simply being around family can actually trigger some of those old things. Or we may be quick to join or agree with things so that we don't feel alone. This card talks about not feeling alone. It can be a card of not having enough money and trying to come out of a very broke situation. But this could also be like just going along to get along so that you don't feel alone. Another way this energy can play out is sometimes this card can kind of represent old emotions creeping up. And this would talk about, don't let, if we get into the habit of when we feel bad, we spend money, like shopping makes us feel better. And it's that kind of thing. Like, don't be tempted by any of that. Like, just remember your goals and remember what you stand for, and stick to the script, stick to your script. And I don't mean do everything in a traditional way necessarily, because again, I'm not seeing the Hierophant energy here as institution like I was in the other one. This is your own, like, I just want to say moral code. So I would be ready for those things to, you could say, trigger you to feel like you used to feel about certain things. And you may be quick to try to like come out of that feeling or to self-soothe in some way. But I would really try to keep in mind and use that stubbornness to your best benefit this time. You know what's right for you, and stick to that. It's very internal, like insular kind of energy. And in the face of other people, there's something here, and I don't really know what this is. Kind of a peer pressure type of energy. You stick to you, and it's your lantern that will keep you warm, right? It's that's the thing, is you have to go to sleep with you at night. And so to keep that in mind, that those other two cards are minor arcana. I don't think that they're going to have a huge impact, but there is the advice to remember your own values, what's important to you, and not to be distracted by the fireflies or the things that might even try to bait you. So I'm just going to leave it at that, but that's interesting advice. So I hope that helps. Okay, Gemini, your cards are really interesting and they're really straight to the point. The advice for this month: the 6 of Coins in reverse, the 8 of Wands in the upright, and the 10 of Swords. Normally I would say the 10 of Swords is probably the most painful card in the tarot deck. I never like to see it come up in any reading ever. I mean, it does, because we do go through painful things, but it does represent an ending that can feel like betrayal. Swords, that suit has to do with the way we talk, the way we communicate with people, the way we think, and express ourselves. And so those are definitely the harshest things in most cases. Like, words do hurt. Our thoughts actually hurt. And we can really stay in a bad place. This card is a little bit different in this deck. It's still an ending. It could be the ending of you speaking to someone. It could be the end of a certain way of thinking about something, that you're just done. Usually this is the card where I say, once you get to the 10 of Swords, there's like no coming back from it. A situation has been talked to death. Like, it's over. And it can also be that point where you see something so clearly or hear something that you can never unhear. And so there's no more talking about it. It's really done. And there needs to be a new way of thinking, a new way of talking, because the old way just isn't working anymore. What's interesting to me about this deck is that when I see this card, whenever it comes up, I think of like an X-ray. And I think of the ability to see through a situation to its bare bones. And it's a great deal of clarity. And that is an interesting way to read what is otherwise a fairly painful energy, usually. And I think just go with me here, because this is kind of a reach. But the way that I kind of see this is because it's a hand, and I told you this deck has a lot of hand imagery. But because it's a hand, it's almost like you're seeing through your ability. You're seeing the bare bones of your ability to do anything else to change a situation. Like, it's this rawness of seeing exactly what you're capable of in a situation in terms of changing it. And that's where the ending would come from. It's like there's no more delusion. There's no more seeing it through any kind of rose-colored glasses. It just is what it is. You're seeing it. And again, with this deck, with all its hands, it has to do with your like capability to make a difference here. Like, I don't know how else to say it. So anyway, it seems painful. I don't think it's as painful as like seeing something very clearly. That, and when you add these other two cards, the 6 of Cups, the 6 of Coins in reverse, it talks about unequal give and take, like a situation that isn't exactly like fair. You're not receiving what you give out, vice versa. You're not giving what you're receiving. There's an imbalance here that has to do with worth. Either not getting paid what you're worth, not giving someone else what they're worth. And then the 8 of Wands is a card of communication. And these arrows represent like either quick action, in a rare sense. They can be travel, but I'm not feeling travel here. I'm seeing back and forth communication. The weird thing is, in this deck, again, it's very typical representation, but I'm just feeling like I don't know if you have repeatedly tried sending off communication, expressing your worth or something about something not being fair, or attempting to rectify a situation that wasn't fair. And the reason I say that are because the yellow roses, and sometimes yellow roses represent like remembrance, right? You know, could tie a yellow ribbon kind of thing. And that color yellow is about like I'm just totally, my mind just went blank. That's so weird. But it has to do with like a remembrance. My mind went blank and we're talking about remembrance. Oh, ugh, it's just that kind of day. But there could be something that maybe you have either been trying to communicate to either fix a situation or to get compensation to fix a situation that has seemed unfair and it's not going anywhere. And basically in November, at some point, I think you will see that your capacity to change a situation, you see it for what it is. Like there's nothing else that can be talked about to change a situation. There's nothing you can say that will do it. Now, I don't think that this is nearly as painful as this card would usually represent. So I don't think this is a negative thing. I think it actually is meant to free you up, because what comes after the 10 of Swords is the Ace of Swords. And that's like the big idea. That's a new way of communicating. That's truth and clarity that comes after the 10 of Swords. So I like it. I think you're setting yourself up for, I want to say, a big surprise. You know, and I don't know what this has to do with. Trying to communicate something the same way until you get it, that you do not, your words are not going to fix the situation. But I think that there's going to be a great deal of clarity and truth on the other side of that. And I don't know when that will happen for you in November, but it's going to be like, I just feel it's very positive. Like you really, the clarity here changes you and possibly your responsibility in a situation, but it's a positive thing. And I think it's going to be, I don't know why, it's going to come across as a pleasant surprise. Maybe you had the wrong idea about someone. Maybe you were kind of barking up the wrong tree about a situation. It could be protecting somebody else and realizing they don't quite need your protection. I don't know what that is, but I wouldn't fear it. I would just know that if you feel inept, or if you feel like you're wasting your effort, you're wasting your breath, know that that won't matter. Like it's going to be a good thing. It will be a relief. And I think you're in for a pleasant surprise. So I like that. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. That's interesting. Okay, Cancer. The cards I pulled for you for advice for November. The Fool card, which is great. That came up in the collective. The Five of Wands, which is a card of conflict. And it can be a card of kind of like drama among people, everyone kind of operating from their own agenda. But it can also represent like chaos. Lots of things happening at once. A total mix-up of energies, shaking everything up. And then the Eight of Swords in reverse, which is a great way. This card, when it's in the upright, talks about being stuck in a mental way, meaning you're your own worst enemy. It's kind of like the mental prison card. Like you don't think you have options. You don't want to look at it. You don't know what to do. It's just being trapped in your own head. When this is reverse, you're free. It's like out of mental jail. And so I love this. Somehow the vibe I'm getting from this with this Fool card, looking at the fire. Okay. The Fool card here is like seeing the bigger picture of something. I don't know if you're having a mindset shift, or if you get this really great idea that totally changes the way that you used to do things, and it frees your mind up then. There could be something here of a very, very personal nature. I feel really personal with this. I don't know, this card makes me, when this is in the upright, this makes me think of propping up a false image of ourselves, right? The hand is holding up this hand that doesn't seem like it has a life of its own. It's almost like this putting on a mask for the world. Well, when this is reversed, you're free from that. There is a freedom here. And again, I feel it's intensely personal, like maybe your outlook on something, or have you ever read an article on something that just really opens up your mind? You see something from a totally different point of view, and it kind of messes with everything you thought up to that point. And that's kind of what I want to see here. I mean, that's what I am seeing here. The Fool is some brand new opportunity. It's a new way of being. It's a new start. And what comes with it is the chaos involved in letting go of everything that was, so that you can begin this new start. But it's so empowering. And I do think it is really personal. And I do think it has to do with an authenticity that just feels right to you. I hope I'm making sense with that. Because the Five of Wands could be conflict with other people. Like if this is you and the Fool and you want to start something new and other people don't agree with you, they don't agree with you're doing the right thing or you're behaving the right way, or, they don't think that's such a good idea. That's going to cause some conflict, right? So when we come across something new, I really like that it's empowering and passionate. I feel so much passion in these cards, versus this hand that doesn't quite look alive this way. I mean, somebody's propping it up. This looks like breathing life into something, and the passion of it. It doesn't matter if there's conflict, or you may have to kind of burn down the old to just let it go. Like there's drama that may need that ensues, but you're so set on this, it's right for you. And I kind of love this. Like this is just about embracing it, and it's okay if there is some conflict or if there are loose ends that need to be tied up. This doesn't always involve other people. It could just be that you have a lot to do. I have this really great idea, but I got to finish up all this stuff first. And I'm kind of in that spot myself, and I don't have a lot of Cancer in my chart, but the thing is, I get this energy. You want to start something new. You've got this idea, looking at the sun. This is something you want that'll make you happy. And really the chaos that might come from the new thing. When you start a new job, right? You have a new wardrobe you have to consider, a new time schedule potentially. There are new people that you have to meet. You have to get a new desk. And there's a lot of kind of chaos energy involved in new beginnings. But it's very freeing. Like you get to be yourself. So I like it. I think the advice here is just to simply embrace that. Be ready for it. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think be ready to be out of some kind of mental jail. And that's always a great energy. So I hope that helps. Okay, Leo, your cards for the month of November basically kind of tell me onward and upward. I really like it. You have some really great cards. This is very positive and mature energy, but it's a maturity reaching its peak and being done with that, shedding the mature skin in lieu of something new. And I really like it. The first card is the King of Wands. Now, this is a very masculine energy in terms of doing and mastery and leadership. And I love it. I like the King of Wands, and it's not necessarily a gender thing. Each of the kings and queens of the tarot deck have their own personality, and we embrace and embody all of them at different points. So this isn't a masculine, feminine kind of, it is masculine, but it's not a gender thing. The King of Wands here, if you look at the cards, the antlers, when deer get to it, they shed antlers. And the thing is, this is a card of, again, someone in leadership position and mastery. That it speaks to me of someone who is basically stepping down or close to it. Like there is a time of retiring those antlers. And I like it. It's a very positive. I don't see anything negative here. There's also a great deal of example setting going on. So you may be in a position that other people could be watching you also. Like you're leaving an example or setting a precedent or an example of something. And that is part of the King of Wands role, is he does lead that way. And part of leading is knowing when it's time to step down from a particular role. That's kind of what I feel here. Now, the Four of Cups in reverse, that role could be a lot of things too. It doesn't necessarily speak to a particular job or something. It could just be, again, we're talking about cycles of the way that we think, or a season for things. And I feel like there is a season of something coming to an end. Now, the Four of Cups in reverse is another card that you pulled. And this one is interesting. I love this depiction of the four. This deck is so beautiful and brilliant in so many ways. And it's very simple. Again, this is the Raven's Prophecy Tarot deck. And I typically use it for advice and oracles. I don't do full spreads with it because the images are pretty powerful. But the Four of Cups in the upright is the card of emotional like stagnancy. And in here you can see these two birds and their reflections. There is this mirroring thing going on, and there's nothing new happening. And some of those, the two that are reflected, there are ripples in it that kind of spread out, but nothing new is happening. There's a sense of stability here, and taking a moment. I feel like it's just a moment though. When it's in reverse, it's kind of coming out of that. And what I heard in my head next, I was like, coming out of some kind of illusion that this is it. And I don't know how to explain this. I don't know why it's coming like that. But do you see how in the reflection especially, it looks like the one bird is like possibly whispering in the ear of the other bird. And they're both looking. And when it's in reverse, they're looking to the past. So there may be a moment of like emotional stability looking at the past, because I do have the King of Wands and this energy of like a change in the season. So it's like everything's kind of coming to a halt, and we're looking in an emotional sense about the past. But I'll tell you where that's going in a minute. The last card is the Ten of Swords, which we've already seen. I think this was in Gemini's reading. And again, normally what would be a very painful card to me in tarot, the Ten of Swords is bad. Here it's just not that bad. It's just like, again, it speaks of an ending, right? And the ending of talking a certain way, of thinking a certain way, thinking about something. Like we see right through that our words aren't going to matter anymore. Like our intellect, our thoughts, like what we think of a thing is done. And again, that's just another, this culminating, like this ending, this change in the season. And the reason I say this is super positive is because I got this feeling that when the King of Wands, this antler energy here, it doesn't necessarily mean like the deer dies, it's like a new season. So there's been mastery here. There's been leadership. And we have been stable in that. And we've been reflecting on that. You and possibly someone else, because I get real partnership energy off of this, even though normally I probably wouldn't. The nature of this card alone, though, is that when you get the Four of Cups in reverse, it's coming out of emotional stagnancy. And I don't mean stagnancy. It's not always so bad. We need stability, right? It can just be stability. But it also can be apathy. And what I see here kind of with this ending and this changing of the guard and this ending a certain way of being is, I just want to hear in my head, like, your adventures aren't done. There's more emotions to be felt. This one might be closing out, and you might be spending some time reflecting on that. I wouldn't get lost in the idea that there's nothing else out there. So if people are, I know my husband is retiring and he's in the process of just now part-time wrapping things up, and I believe he does have Leo in his big three. And the thing is, I can see this energy playing out even for him in that stepping down from a leadership role and the emotional stability of knowing what your role is and what you've played for a long time. And it's kind of weird to think that when you look back, like, well, I'm stable this way because I know what my role is, but yet there's not much I have to offer. Like, I've done everything I could here. There are new people doing that job. There's my opinion isn't necessarily necessary as much as it was. I see the situation really clearly, that everything that I've contributed is like, there's not much more I can contribute to a given situation. And that Four of Cups in reverse is really this, like, well, now what kind of feeling. Like, now what am I gonna, there could be some worry here on an emotional front, but I see it as super positive. And just to clarify my thoughts, and I was kind of right on this based on the cards that came out, I clarified that card because I think that ending symbolizes a new season with new emotions, and we possibly are getting bogged down, or have been, in the emotions of the ending when actually something new is coming. So I know that was a wordy way to say it, and I'm not coming out very well, but thank goodness for clarifiers, because when I clarified that Ten of Swords, the ending card, I got the Page of Wands, the Page of Swords, and the Ace of Pentacles, and that's exactly what I was talking about. It's really gratifying when I have a gut feeling about a card and it shows up in the clarifiers exactly what I thought it was. Pages are new energy, all right? And the Ace of Pentacles is a new opportunity. It's a new job. It's a new thing. And the Page of Wands is about a new journey, right? And being experienced with it to some degree. I love this. It's very akin to the Fool card, except this isn't this guy's first rodeo, right? He isn't jumping off of a cliff. He's standing on solid ground, and he can see the way forward, and he literally has a feather in his cap. He's ready for a new adventure. He's ready for something new. And whereas we had the Ten of Swords right here, that means everything that you think, everything you've said and communicated about a situation, it's over. Your words aren't going to make an impact. There's no new way to say something, like a situation has been done. Here is the Page of Swords. This is a new beginning, a new way of talking. It may feel unfamiliar, right? You may be learning something new. You may have to start over. We have two pages, which are both youthful, young energies, kind of inexperienced. They're not kings. They're pages. So this is learning and starting over and being new again at something, a new way of talking. You may have a new way of budgeting, a new way of thinking about something, because you are, there is a change of season. You don't have to be the leader anymore. So this is like a new role, and it's beautiful. Look at this. This is a great card. Look how positive it is. Blue sky, an opportunity being handed to you. The way you will approach it and the way you think about it is different maybe than the old situation, but it's super positive. And that's a pentacle card. So it's something in your real world. It could be a new way of making money. It could be a new hobby. It could be a new use of your time, because pentacles are resources and your time is a resource. So it's kind of exciting. Like, I definitely see a stepping down of one role and a ramping up to invite and deal with new possibility. So I find this to be really good. I feel a great deal of maturity and almost a congratulatory energy of moving into a new phase that I think will bring quite a bit of new emotion to your life also. So this is exciting. I think it's positive very much. And if you are at all worried about the future, I wouldn't. I think there is excitement, and there's still more to, I want to just say there's more life to live. Like, there is this feeling of, sure, one aspect is winding down, but it doesn't mean that that's it. It means that there's this new thing, and it may feel unfamiliar, but I do think it's going to be kind of exciting. So I think you have that to look forward to in November, at least the hint of that as you close some stuff out. So that's an exciting read. Okay, Virgo, your cards came out unlike any of the other ones so far. I got the Queen of Cups, the Eight of Wands, and the Two of Coins in reverse. Now, this is pretty straightforward. On the outside, you are an earth sign. So, on the outside, you could be dealing with a Queen of Cups, which would be a Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, feminine energy. Doesn't have to be one of those signs, but if it were to come up like this, I would say it probably is. If not, then yeah, normally I don't read advice like you're dealing with somebody from the outside. So I don't know why I even said that. But in terms of the Queen of Cups, you are an earth sign. This advice for the month of November is to get in touch with the Queen of Cups part of yourself. And again, this isn't a gender issue. This is more of the personality of the Queen of Cups, has to do with our own nurturing, what we really like. When we talk about self-love and taking care of ourselves and that soft side inside of us. Even if you're a man, it may feel difficult to get in touch with this part of yourself, because it's not maybe the most comfortable energy, but it's very important. Moon, whenever it shows up in tarot, it's a symbol of your emotional self, your subconscious mind, things you might not even be aware of. So there are signs potentially in November, that could help you get in touch with that more, the softer side of yourself, the things you really love, the things that matter to you, the things that you nurture in your own life and in your own self. It's to get in touch with that part. Okay. So if there are people in your life that you have not spoken to, or that you care for in this kind of way, the advice of the cards is to basically speak up. The Eight of Wands has to do with communication, right? It's that back and forth, texting, calling, emailing. It typically is quick communication. That's why I say the more electronic forms. But this is like an energy exchange. It's back and forth. And from that heart space, the moon is also on here. So it's speaking from your emotions. Now, the wands are usually fiery energy, and that represents more of our passions and ambitions. But here, I feel like this is really clearly saying you need to communicate what you really want. Like the energy of the moon with the fire, those are things that we want deeply after getting really in touch with that. Like, what will make you feel better? What is it you want from your life? You're emotionally speaking, how do you take care of yourself, and what is it you want? And this is about speaking up. Your cards are coming across almost as a warning, because the Two of Coins is the last card, and this is an energy of dropping the ball. Like when this is in the upright, it's having options, keeping two things going. It could be a card of having two jobs, you know, two different streams of income. You've got things kind of moving, and you can handle them, but there's a little bit of a juggle here, because in tarot, twos all represent choice. And for a while, we can sustain that place of having a choice, right? After a while, though, like we can't keep that juggle up forever. And if you don't choose, you may lose the chance to choose. So where twos are choosing the new path that you want to get on, you might have two job options. You might have, two of anything like this. It's choice for a new path. And when it shows up in reverse as advice, it's not choosing can actually lead to not having a choice. So I feel like, again, interpretation can be lots of different things, but with the Queen of Wands and the Eight of Cups, this is about speaking up for what you want before you lose the chance, before you lose the option. And it's being real. It's from an emotional place. What is it that you want? So it's tapping into yourself and then acting on that by saying it out loud. Because I think there's this time of, with this card, this is the one that's throwing me in the whole thing, because it can mean a couple of different things, and it's advice that always throws off the meaning just a little bit. I mean, advice cards all have a slant in terms of how you're trying to use this energy. So this energy of the Two of Coins in reverse is dropping, not making a choice. And the implication is always that you could lose the chance to choose by not choosing, by not doing something, by not keeping things in the air. But with this being advice, it's not telling you not to choose. It may be like, because it's a pentacle card and the other cards are so heavy on the emotion, it may be advising you not to be overly practical or logical, because you may be missing out. Like, these other two cards are asking you to communicate from a heart space. Not from necessarily a practical space, or there's something about weighing the options from a practical level isn't going to help you. It's listening to your heart is the way to go with this. So I know that's really not the most helpful thing in the whole world, but I can't, that Two of Coins in reverse just talks about, I feel like in a weird way, it's an ending. Maybe there's something you didn't choose that you need to talk about. It could be that. Maybe the Queen of Cups and the Eight of Wands could be like an explanation. Not sure. I'm going to try to pull one card on that. Well, clarifying that is the King of Coins and the Hanged Man in reverse. Hanged Man in reverse is Pisces energy. The King of Coins is Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus. But mainly it has to do with being stable and practical and long-term growth and coming out of a period of kind of being stuck. So this actually, as advice, could be like to drop the options and choose from the heart space. And that's how these clarifiers are kind of coming across. The King of Coins is a long-term thinker, and he's pretty grounded and practical for sure. But he's been through a period of some kind of enlightenment. Like, he got more information on something. Because when the Hangman's reversed, we've learned something. And, like, our eyes got open. Like, it's a kind of a big enlightenment thing, where it's like, aha, I got the information I didn't have, and now I'm able to possibly like not be in a state of indecision anymore. It's really getting solid and grounded and able to move on and choose, but it also has to do with choosing from the heart. Okay, I think I talked that to pieces. So I think that's good. It's more, to me, maybe less of a warning now that I clarified it, and more of your options might have narrowed because of something that you've been through. And now it could be time in November to act on that from the heart and communicate it. There is a great deal of like need to communicate here. So I hope that helps. Yeah, let me know if it does. I'm curious about that one. Okay, Libra, you got some heavy hitters for your advice. The Judgment card in reverse, the Three of Wands in the upright, and the Death card in reverse. They all kind of say the same thing, and I don't really know what this is talking about, but in terms of advice, in terms of like the context for you, the advice, though, the Judgment card in reverse has to do with letting go. Normally in tarot, the Judgment, when it's in reverse, is a no. All right. It's you passing judgment on something, someone passing judgment. It can feel like restriction in a way because it can be no, right? And it certainly can be a court thing, like a judgment that didn't go in your favor. But we're not really talking about this in this part. We're talking about advice. So to recognize that you may be restricting yourself in some way, and you might need to let go of judgment And that's either for yourself or perceived judgment. But this is just all about a letting go energy. It really is. It's putting something down that may not belong to you, like fear of judgment could be that. So it's just remember, let it go. And Three of Wands, wands are action energy. And threes have to do with building, coming together, like things coming together and building some kind of structure, no matter, it varies on what that is. But the Three of Wands represents taking certain actions, right? It's building toward something. So it's working toward something. And a key with this card normally is with the optimism or with anticipation that you're going to reach a point of stability, potentially with someone else. Like sometimes in this card, it's a man who has put three wands up and he's looking out, basically waiting for his ships to come in, waiting for someone to bring that fourth action. So there's an anticipation to this card, building towards something, right? So letting go of judgment, building towards something, putting action towards something. And then this death card in reverse is, again, it's another energy where if it shows up in a normal tarot reading, it's about clinging to something that's already gone, that's already over, and not letting it go in some way. And so advice here is to let go of something that was old, that's already passed. Again, it could be self-belief, of some kind, but it's letting the death card happen, like letting transformation occur. If there's a new way of doing something or a new something that you're building toward, letting go of old ways and old systems or old endings, it's not letting that stop you. Now, what's confusing about this read to me is not so much the cards as the placement of them. Is you have this Three of Wands sandwiched in between two major arcana of basically needing to release. So it may be a couple of things. It could be very heavy feeling, like you may get on a roll with something, or you may like make up your mind that you're going to do something and you're going to overcome all past like judgment or worry, and then you get going, but then you have these feelings come up again, right? That you're still clinging to something old. So it can be kind of this weird trying to get out of a situation, but being kind of sucked back in. But I think it's all like mental. I think it's internal, if I had to guess. So do you see on the Three of Wands, the crow or the raven that is sitting there is way up high. He's above the fire that he's trying to keep lit there. And so I guess what I'm saying is, despite these heavy energies kind of pulling down on a situation, and that would be doubt and old judgments and the negative thinking, the advice I'm really saying is to stay really elevated in your hope and your optimism and your anticipation and the work that you're, towards something, despite all this. Now, the other thing this can mean is work towards something, even if the change isn't going to happen within the Scorpio time period. Like even in the face of it, I say Scorpio time period because the death card is Scorpio energy. And if I were reading this more of a timing thing, then it's probably not going to change. Like you're not going to necessarily get to that fourth wand, but keep going. You may not be stable during Scorpio season, which Sagittarius season starts in November around the 22nd. I never know the cutoff date for the zodiac. It's always around the 20th, 21st, or 22nd. So sure, for the first 3 weeks of November, it may, you may be like constantly worried about like past stuff, the old judgments, what people think, what, it could be, like I said, a literal thing, but something that wasn't in your favor. You could be kind of like concerned with that because it may not change right now in the month of November. something might not be ending, but you should release and let change what needs to change. Try not to cling. I think work toward the best, have an optimistic attitude, try not to cling to things that need to be left alone or need to change. Let them change. That's an interesting one with the death card right there. So I hope that helps in some way. I know that wasn't clear, but it could be like timing, talking about during Scorpio season, it may not feel like it, but there may be a resistance to some kind of large change and past doubts and judgments, and try to work toward it. Try to be cooperative and stay optimistic and do your part. I don't know why do your part is coming to mind, but as long as you kind of keep your eye and keep your emotions up, I think you'll navigate this okay, even if you don't see it all happening right now. Like, I think maybe that's the key with the death card, is it may not feel like it's changing, but you don't want to slip back into old ruts and old habits. If things are meant to leave, let them. If you're meant to evolve, allow that. And don't worry about what happened in the past. All right, I hope that helps. Scorpio, your cards for advice are the King of Swords. Uh-oh, glare there. And the Nine of Coins, which is one of my favorite cards in that deck, and the Moon card in reverse. And this is pretty clear. In the month of November, you may want to embody the King of Swords, which, as Scorpio, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. I think this is pretty easy energy for you to step into. It has to do with directness. And even though Scorpio is a water sign, and that is typically very much an emotional energy, the King of Swords can be kind of devoid of emotion when it comes to making decisions and speaking clearly and making an announcement of some kind. I don't really know why I feel like an announcement. Do you see how the sword, I know with the glare, it's hard to see. It looks like the sword is like taking a stab in the dark, right? It's like trying to point your truth and clarity and logic and knowing into a dark room. Like you don't know what's in there, but you know what truth is to you. So I know that sounds kind of like dramatic, but I just keep like stab in the dark, like I don't know. I don't think you necessarily know what the ramifications will be. I don't think you necessarily know the territory that you're going to be in some regard. I do think you know what matters to you. I think you know what you want to say. I think you understand what truth is to you. But the King of Swords is very decisive energy. He's not swayed by emotions. Like, he's already processed emotion, he already knows, but he's working from logic and truth. And that kind of energy you can see like a lawyer or like a judge. A judge would be a King of Swords in that he can listen to both sides, but he's going to follow the law. Like, what does the law say? And so there is a bigger thing going on than just emotions, but I don't know why I'm going into it that much. However, I feel like you may need to speak something, and I think you're going to say it very directly. I think you know your own truth in this scenario, and the advice is to come from that standpoint, right? Know your truth. Do what's right for you. And if that is in your words, then fine. Kind of is this weird theme to this, but the Nine of Coins is a card of independence. All right. It means usually having everything you need in the resource realm and not necessarily needing a counterpart. It's being able to kind of stand on your own. But this can, especially given the King of Swords here, it can actually like be talking about standing on your own 2 feet, not just from a financial standpoint, but maybe your opinion about something. The King of Swords is got an opinion and he knows the reason for it and he's thought about it. And this is another card that's kind of similar to me right now in that I want to say, if you need to stand up and do something that you're not sure other people will agree with, it's okay. I think you're going to have the I want to say guts. That the guts aren't showing up anywhere, but there's something here about being strong enough and knowing yourself enough and knowing your own truth that you can stand up independently. And I have a feeling, I don't know if this is, I don't think it's about money. I think it's about like a decision that you might be making for yourself, because the King of Swords is a decision maker. And it could be announcing something, drawing up documents on something, but I think you are okay to stand alone here. Like, I don't think you need support from anyone else, is kind of what I get. And this Nine of Coins is really speaking to me from a couple of different ways here. Number one, there are different phases. If you look at how the petals are laid out, and they're all different like colors, I keep hearing like it takes all kinds. There are different phases and times for things. So I don't know if this speaks to trying to say where you are in this moment, this is right for you, or trying to make a decision that has to do with timing, or maybe you've changed your mind about something, but it is about standing on your own and making a call on something and being okay with being independent. If you're making a call in order to be independent, you could be like making an announcement of some kind. Anything like that, where you just don't need everybody's approval to stand on your own. And then the last card is the Moon in reverse. This has to do with a great deal of clarity. When the Moon is upright, this is the card of emotions. This is the card of our subconscious. We don't see everything clearly. The Moon energy operates in metaphor and shadow and things that we have to feel our way through. And that's kind of quite the opposite of the King of Swords. Like, the King of Swords is linear and logical, and there is a path forward. Moon energy can mess with us a little bit because, well, we can interpret things differently. We may not see everything clearly. We may have ways of reacting to things emotionally that aren't necessarily logical, but they're coming from our own emotions and our own history. Anyway, I'm going too far into that card, but it is a major arcana, and it is in reverse. When this is reversed, we've gotten clarity. We've been through those emotions. Like, we have processed whatever it was that might have been confusing to us, and now we know. But because the Moon card is in this spread for advice, I have a feeling whatever this is about independence, making a decision, standing on your own, has to do with something to do with your emotions. I mean, in a tiny way, this is like saying, oh, I really like Marvel movies, in a room full of people that you're not sure if they like Marvel movies. It doesn't have to be anything big, but is decisive. And I do feel like there is an announcement or communication or some kind of decision being made that you may have to stand on your own about, or about you being independent. And you have processed the emotions about it. Like, the fact that the Moon energy's here at all, I think you've been through this process to figure out what would make you happy. And that's what you're deciding on doing. So I think there's a great deal of strength here. I see a great deal of, maybe you had to build up to this. Like, that Moon card being here really looks to me like you have had a bout of being in your emotions and had to try to figure that out. Maybe you've had to separate out your emotions from the people around you or something, because the independence card is there. So I think this month is about possibly expressing that in some way, whether it's in written form or speaking it, or just making sense in your own brain about what's going to make you happy. But it's very decisive. That King of Swords he is a decision maker, but it's almost like you've already decided the emotions quietly in your own room. And then when you come out to make a decision, you don't have to be all emotional about it. You've done that part in a very private way. So I hope that helps. That was kind of a weird one in a good way. Like, I felt like, I think this is positive. And if you take anything away from it, it's that I think you've already processed what you need to process, and you're able to stand on your own that way. So I hope that helps. Sagittarius. You have the Ten of Cups in reverse. the Devil card, and the Ace of Swords in reverse. Now, what's interesting about these three cards is in a normal tarot reading that would make me cringe a little bit. Those aren't necessarily the best feeling energies to have together on the table, and the way they're positioned, it's not a good feel. However, as advice, I think this could be some of the strongest advice that I've given so far from the cards in the month of November. So the Ten of Cups here is basically talking about a family situation or a group situation, that it's something where you have emotional ties to other people. It could just be the idea of it. Like if you had ideas of how, you would want your family life to be, or if your family life was in the past or something. Once you reverse, it's not really great. There's not a lot of loyalty or camaraderie or support here. Now, upright, you can see that this is a very crowded card with everyone's own agenda, and they're all kind of packed in the box of the card. So I don't know what that is, except that it feels so confined in terms of, being lumped in together. And there's something really unhappy about this. Like, it's not working, or at least not working for you. And I think this as advice is to recognize that. I don't know if you've outgrown a situation. It could be. You could, outgrow the thoughts of the group or the family that you're in, and you're not like that. And something could have not ended well. There could be a family situation, or it could be work, because we do get emotionally attached to people at work. But something isn't the way that you either thought it should be, or was promised, or the picture perfect version of that. This as advice is to recognize that you may not be feeling very supported by a group. There could be a really unhappy group of some kind, and to recognize that that's not working is one of the first things. And with it being a 10, it really needs to end. Like, there needs to be an end, not necessarily to the group, but the group dynamic. If you're not being supported, that part of it needs to end. And the advice here will be the Devil, which is really interesting because nobody really wants to see the Devil card come up in a reading, because it represents vice and temptation and negative self-talk, things that actually restrict us. Like, anyway, I'm not going to go into the Devil card here, but the thing is, as advice, it's actually pretty positive, and I kind of love that this particular deck utilizes a mask, because this is really simple advice, is, exert your power here a little bit in a situation that isn't working for you, and drop the mask. This is about not going along to get along. It's about standing up and asserting yourself that something isn't working. So you can see where if we have a situation, a family situation, or something that feels very confining or unsupportive or not working, it's best to stand up and say something. No mask, just use the power that you have as one of those individuals in that group to actually come out and assert your power and say, this isn't working. The other thing to watch for here is the Ace of Swords in reverse. Watch out for miscommunication, right? Watch out for not being clear. I think that goes hand in hand in some ways with this. And in some ways with this, in terms of if this were an expectation and it doesn't fit you anymore, living up to other people's expectations, living up to whatever the group think is, or some ideal that you were trying to hang on to, if it's not working, change it up. Just be very clear. I think there's a difference between asserting yourself and just being bossy, or just throwing a wrench into things, or being too assertive. Now, this is standing up and saying who you are and what you need, but being so clear about it that it won't throw the group into even more of a tizzy. So I don't see anger. I don't see acting on any kind of trying to take over. I just see asserting what you need in a very clear way, because clearly the other situation isn't working. Like, it didn't have a happy ending. It wasn't working out to everyone's benefit. And so I'd say now is the time to stand up and make yourself known. Make, put your needs out there in a very clear way. It's not about being too loud. It's not about trying to take over. It's just about being honest and not just going along with the plan that doesn't work, clearly. So it's pretty clear advice. Interesting. I would love to know what that might apply to in your own world if you feel like sharing. So, okay, Capricorn. You also, like Scorpio, have some heavy hitter cards here. The Death card came up as the first card for advice. This is pretty clear energy in terms of advice. When the Death card comes up, it's a very weighty card in the tarot, and it's kind of one of those forces that is like unstoppable. We don't stop this kind of transformation. So in the face of an ending, or in the face of something that needs to end, this basic sense of advice would be to allow it. Right? When the time has come to let something go, it's allow that. Allow that change to happen. Allow that transformation to happen. And embrace it, actually. Like, there is this allowing is more of a passive energy. Embracing is more active. And I'd say that I'm feeling kind of a combination. So I'm not quite sure if I'm getting any context here as much as you can revere something for what it was and recognize that it's time for something new. And it's just allowing that new thing. And then the Strength card is next. And this is one of those cards in the tarot that's quite literal. It's basically talking about dig deep and be brave. It require quite a bit of restraint. The typical Rider-Waite tarot has the Strength card having an angel or a female, like with her hands on the mouth of a lion. And he lets her, like the lion allows that grace. It's a card of grace and restraint. So in the face of some kind of ending, it may be tempting to fight against it. The better use of your energy would be restraint, but bravery and facing the future. There's something about facing forward. Like, I don't know what front facing is going on here, but that is coming up routinely with this card too. The Six of Cups in reverse is the other piece of advice here. And this is another card of letting go. It's more of a minor energy versus the Death card. But this is, the Six of Cups talks about our past. And when it's in reverse, it's a negative past. It's memories that aren't good. Things that happen that we don't have good memories about. But it's also, when it's in reverse, it's letting go. And if you can see the crow on here, what he's looking at in the past, they're just bubbles. And they're going to pop. These are just passing thoughts. So sixes are all about kind of moving on from some kind of conflict. And certainly with death and the Strength here, that is Scorpio and Leo energy. I don't know if you're dealing with either one of those, but as people. But this is like forward facing. Even if you do have passing thoughts, passing energies that kind of come into your awareness, it's having the bravery to face forward. This crow is still looking, I guess, backwards. the camera. Anyway, so yeah, I have bravery. I don't really know what this is. I think your life might be going through a big transition, and maybe you are tempted to kind of look backwards, but the better use would be to allow whatever's happening to happen and to embrace the new and concentrate on what is in front of you rather than the negative things from the past. I see this as actually pretty empowering because we have death brings a certain like new thing. Like in the tarot world, the death card is number 13 out of 21 major arcanas. That's 22 cards, including the Fool card, which is the card 0. So it's right in the middle of those cards. And so it's not an ending, like nothing comes after. It's a transformation. There is a phoenix energy. There is something transforms into something else. And it does require us to kind of be brave and let go. I see letting go of like the old things, like almost things that nag you that aren't even, because this is like a 6 of cups in the face of a major arcana change. Like the weight of these cards are so different. The 6 is so minor compared to the death energy that I almost feel like this doesn't matter. Let go of those negatives that don't matter anymore. People that said stuff to you, things that happened that don't really matter anymore. You have better things to think about, bigger things to think about, and just keep going forward. So I hope that helps. Aquarius, your cards of advice for the month of November, if I can pull it off the table. The 9 of Swords in reverse, the 3 of Cups in reverse, and the 3 of Wands upright. So right off the bat, I already like the synchronicity of your card here, the 9 and the 2 3s. I think this is one of those things where I don't know if anything is required of you except like a decision, which kind of like, even if it's internal, it feels like the collective reading a little bit. The 9 of Swords in reverse, I love this. Upright, it's the worry card. It's the anxiety card. The things that keep us up at night that we kind of worry about. And with this deck, I always imagine the guy like tapping his hands on a desk, you know, that nervous energy. Kind of worst case scenario thinking, past betrayals coming up, all kinds of stuff that cause us worry. When this is in reverse, it's really simple. It's don't worry. You know, I feel like recognize that you've already internalized a lot of any old ghosts and that kind of thing. And I almost want to tell you, and this is just kind of an intuitive thing I feel with this card, is there's some element of being able to turn the things that you're worried about into helpful projections for yourself rather than negative ones. And the way that I see this playing out, and I get a lot from this card right now, it's actually overwhelming when that happens, like in a good way. Like I can't believe I'm just looking at that card and I can think so many things come to mind. But it's almost like recognizing that a lot of the things that you're worried about or have been worried about or were worried about are actually situations that played out in the past. And there is this weird sense of being able to be grateful for those things because they added to your knowledge base and made you wiser and made you who you are, but they're not things to fear in the future. So it's kind of like turning anxiety on its head. It's recognizing that literally those old ghosts aren't here to haunt you now. They're here to comfort you moving ahead, but you are better for having them. And I don't know how to say that because it seems silly to think that our anxieties can be helpful to us. But I think there's something that may happen with you in this month that you recognize that. I don't think that's me telling you to do that. I don't think you're going to have to worry about certain things that you were. So if you start to feel anxious, remember that anxiety is in its own weird way trying to help you, not hurt you. And you could even do like, you could even like address your anxieties, the things that worry you. Say you have nightmares, okay? Say one particular thing comes up in nightmare form for you. One way to address that is to be grateful for it, to address it in your head or out loud or when you're in the shower or whatever, and just say thank you. That you appreciate the help, you appreciate the added worry, and you're going to absorb what that anxiety had to offer, and you hope it doesn't leave you because it's always good to have something there watching your back, but it doesn't need to impede your progress. That was a lot, so I don't know. Basically, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about something. The 3 of Cups in reverse. Basically, this can be a card of don't party too much. So in terms of advice, don't party too much. There's something about like not letting go of your groundedness. Okay, so like when we drink too much or something, we are not the most grounded, but I don't see that as the main part here. What I see is that you may not need to reconcile. There may be somebody that either you were waiting for, or a group, or a get together, or maybe you had partners in something, and you're tired of worrying and you're tired of waiting. I feel waiting for a reconciliation with this card. And the advice is to not. Like, you don't need somebody else's opinion. You don't need to get together with somebody else to figure out what they're going to do. You just know. Like, there's this soloness to this card that you don't need other people's gossip. You don't need other people's backbiting. This card can be a card of like backbiting and bickering and negative talk about other people, like socially. And when it's reversed, there's just, you're not engaging in that, or you're not waiting for someone else, or you're not getting together with somebody else, like no reconciliation. So no anxiety, not needing any of that social whatever. The last piece of advice is the Three of Wands, and this is about doing the work to build your own future, to build your own stability. I love that I've seen something different. This card has come up a couple of times now, and I see something a little bit different in it every time, and not because of the glare, just because, well, I'm noticing that Raven is like kind of the lone raven, it's like the Lone Ranger. That's funny. Anyway, this is like doing your own thing, building toward your own stability, and having a lot of like positive anticipation about it. This is always a card of optimism to me. And versus the getting together and the gnashing and the gossipy, like this just seems like wasting time. Both of these cards feel like time wasters if you let them. So I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't be super anxious. I wouldn't necessarily count on anyone's opinion. Aquarius, I think you know what you want, and this theme of knowing what you want and beginning to build it, having gotten what you needed out of it. Maybe you don't need to talk to anyone else, that you know enough now to go ahead and start building with a kind of a great deal of confidence. That's kind of what I get. So minor arcanas, I wouldn't expect anything, in terms of advice. There's not a lot of like heavy stuff here. It's more about like, you don't need to worry. You don't need anyone's opinion. You've already got what you need, and start building with a sense of optimism. Do your own thing. Start working toward something that feels like home to you. And have confidence in it. It's almost, like there's not that much to worry about. You've already figured out what you need to know. So, and you've already gotten input from other people. You don't need any more input. There's something important there too. I hope that helps. Okay, and finally Pisces. The energy advice that I pulled for you for the month of November is the Six of Coins in reverse. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Six of Coins in reverse. The Eight of Coins in reverse, and the Devil upright. Now, this is the second time that the Devil upright has come up in these advice readings, and I'm actually really excited about it. This is not a good card in the tarot deck usually. I mean, no offense to the Capricorns out there, because it's Capricorn energy. But it typically will represent, in a normal everyday spread, it represents an area where you might be hung up, right? Where you may have a vice, or you may have a block of some kind. But when it comes up as advice, especially in this deck, I'm like loving this card today. I think it's really positive, because I'm going to start with this one because it has to do with asserting yourself. And I think this is especially appropriate for it to be devil energy for Pisces asserting themselves, because that's not really in the Pisces nature. It's hard to do that, right? As a Pisces, and a lot of people have it somewhere in their chart, we tend to like accommodate and consider so many other people's opinions and their needs, and that I know me, I typically am very like conflict avoidant. most of the time, if it doesn't matter too much, I roll with so much stuff because why? What's the point of fighting about it when we all are different? We all have needs, and sure, I can accommodate this. But this is actually asking us this month to stand up and assert yourself. And it doesn't mean in a nasty way. And I love that this is a mask because from a Piscean energy, it may feel awkward. It may not feel natural to assert yourself. And it may be helpful to pretend to adopt some kind of mask. Like, to step into a different role to stand up for yourself. And I don't see any heavy conflict cards here. All I see is a recognition of what is not worth your time. Okay. The Six of Coins card is a card of self-worth and an equal give and take, an equal exchange of energies. So when it's in reverse, something is out of balance, like it's not worth your time, or you're not getting paid what you think you should, what your effort is, what your work hours are. There could be something that just isn't giving you back. And I think there's a recognition of it in November. And I think this has probably been something that Pisces has been working on for a good part of the year, if not longer. But then all of a sudden you come up with the work card. I'm sorry, I keep trying to shift these around. These are both reversed. And the Eight of Coins in reverse is basically not doing work. It is the work card of the deck. But what I'm kind of feeling with this is not business as usual. All right. Not doing something the same old way. Together, these show in an advice way is to break patterns of working too hard for things that don't pay you enough, that aren't balanced. And so it's not putting effort toward things. Like I see the overwork. When I see the Eight of Coins reversed in an advice section, it has a lot to do with not overworking. And this is probably habitual. It's probably something you're very used to doing. And that's why it could be really difficult, and it can feel foreign for you to kind of say no, to say, I'm not going to keep putting so much effort on overworking into things that aren't really paying me back. It's valuing yourself. And I love it that they're both coins cards, like they're both in the resource realm. They're both pentacles. And we have the Devil card, which has to do with Capricorn, which is an earth sign. So we're talking about the same element here. And for a Pisces, that's weird advice, but I think it's very, very helpful here. So embrace the Devil energy of maybe stepping into what feels selfish to you, what feels foreign to you, but know that this is for your greater good in terms of getting paid what you're worth in this world and not having to work quite so hard. Like turning some of that accommodation and that going with it on yourself in a very practical way. Like I like the practicality of the advice for Pisces this time because I have a feeling that this will cease to feel foreign. Right? This is definitely a behavior way when it doesn't feel comfortable. So you may encounter situations where people want your effort, and maybe you've done it in the past. Maybe you're used to working yourself too much. And this is kind of saying we're not going to do that anymore. And I get this weird sense just go with me here for a second because it's hitting because I am a Pisces, but it may not feel right to you to do this. But I can guarantee, because of the real feel I get from this and how I see it in my own life, is we have the 6 and the 8 and then the Devil, all of the earth energy. This is talking about a bigger shift in your mindset around that poverty consciousness kind of thing. Like where you fit and what your value is in a world that has the values of materialism. And sometimes it can be really stressful when the things that you value aren't necessarily the same things people pay for. So while you give and you give and you give, you don't necessarily get in the way that makes your life materially easier. And so this idea that maybe there's never going to be enough money, or maybe there's never, people aren't going to see you in a way that they value you. All of that, I think, is a larger thing that is changing. And this month is asking you to begin, if you haven't already, to say no to those things, like behaving your way into this shift in how you perceive your value in the world and how it comes back to you. And I know that gets kind of deep, but honestly, we attract what we are. And so when you overwork yourself to the point that you're not getting your own needs met, that's what you're showing outwardly to the world, is that, I'm not worth the care that I give others. Like, I can work myself into a fizz because everyone else is more important than me. And there's this shift that'll happen, and it doesn't mean you're not loving, and it doesn't mean you're not going to put your effort in. You are. But it means, like, having better boundaries. Like, the devil in a bad way is about boundaries and restriction. Your reading, in terms of advice, is asking you to set some of those boundaries, set some of those restrictions, so that you can adjust that thing that is off about your own self-value. So I know that got kind of deep, but I really like it. So yeah, stand up, assert yourself, draw those boundaries, restrict how much of yourself you put into work that takes away from any real value. You can't be of good service if you're tired all the time, if you are working so much for pennies. So it's just making these slight tweaks. I don't think it's a major thing. I think maybe stepping into that devil energy could be kind of different. It may feel like you're being selfish. Like, you may kind of take on that. But I think the more that you step into that, it will become an easier role. And I think you will make friends with that particular devil. And hey, I think you're going to be better for it. But there is something about it, kind of, this is part of the process that's going to lead to something better. So, okay, I could have gone on with that, but we'll shut up for now. And I hope this was all helpful to you. Have a great Halloween. Bye.